exciting episode. Yes, so we are on our 13th episode. Hello and good afternoon, everyone. So we are here for another episode of Real Talk with Jen. Episode
Hello,
3.
everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from, I know we're like global, so from everywhere you are, just saying hello. My name is Jenny, and welcome to Real Talk with Jenny. It's been a long time since I had this opportunity to interview someone. But I'm so happy that I'm doing it now, and I'm at my school. So I'm here in the US and I'm studying at Westchester Community College. So Real Talk with Jenny in the past has been talking about struggles of women, domestic abuse, and everything, and how women actually thrive and got through everything. It is lovely because I'm talking to another woman today who has actually inspired me in many ways. And I've discovered many things about the course that I just had recently. All right, so I'll shut my mouth. I know I talk a lot, but I'll give you a little bit of an introduction about, this special guest that we have today, who's very close to my heart, and she's been a mentor for me. All right, her name is Leslie Painter-Farrell. She's a passionate TESOL educator. You'll find out later what TESOL means. She was my mentor and a mentor to many, teacher trainer, and of course an author. She currently serves as TESOL coordinator and program specialist at the English Language Institute, that's ELI, here at SUNY Westchester Community College, where she supports both students and teachers in creating meaningful and effective English instruction. Well, before this, she directed the MA TESOL program at the New School in New York City and trained teachers for Cambridge in different parts of the world, giving her work a truly global perspective. Leslie has published widely, including the Oxford Handbook, Homework, and Lessons Learned, First Steps Towards Reflective Teaching in ELT. She also co-authored with Gabrielle Diaz-Maggioli. She's also sought after speaker, having given plenary talks at IATEFL. We will find out more about that, where she highlights teacher advocacy, reflective practice, and learner-centered teaching. Throughout her career, she's shown deep commitment to empowering both educators and English learners alike. She has an inspiring voice who empowers teachers to see themselves as advocates and lifelong learners. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my lovely mentor and dear friend, Leslie Painter-Farrell.
So thank you for that lovely introduction. I'm wondering who it is.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very, very nice.
Oh, thank you. I know we spoke that first. There's a lot of terms there, like TESOL. I think our audience wouldn't know about that. But before we jump into that, I would want you to share with our audience a little bit of personal stuff about.
Right. So as you can tell from my accent,
Yes.
I'm not from the United States. I'm from England. And as you said, I've been working in the field of English language teaching for 35 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So in the United States, but then also in Asia, so very close to you.
Yeah.
And then also in Europe, and have done different things throughout my career, from teaching, being a principal, and now teacher training, and being at the wonderful Westchester Community College and working with people like you.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's me in a nutshell, kind of.
All right. So, what actually inspired you to go into teaching?
Right. So that's an interesting thing. I feel as though I fell into it. And I say that because I was actually a graduate of law. And I thought that's what I was going to do. I'd be a lawyer. Do you think I would have been a good one?
I think so. I think so.
Made more money. But usually in England, people take gap years, and that's a year where after you graduate, you travel, you do something, and just before you have to sort of settle down and have the job and whatever. So I decided to travel. So I got into a VW van, an orange one, with my friend, and we drove all the way through Europe. Ran out of money very quickly, and I realized that the only skill I had was actually speaking English, not much more than that. And a school remarkably said, would you like to teach English in Portugal in a place called Guimarães, which is absolutely stunning. And I stayed there for a year, and hook, line and sinker, fell in love with teaching, and I've never looked back. And it kind of married, also I loved learning languages. So I learned Portuguese and lived there and just loved being in a different culture. So yeah, I think I was just extremely lucky. And I grabbed the opportunity that I had. And as I said, I've never looked back.
Wow, amazing. So something I would normally ask, because I always think that there's just one experience that will make you so passionate about something of what you're advocating at this point.
Yeah.
So do you remember any experience or something
well,
led you to be so in love? I've seen you. You're my mentor, and you're just so passionate about your craft, and just you have a lot of heart. Yeah.
I think it would probably be many different sort of incidences as opposed to one major kind of awakening one. And that was that I learned really early on how amazing it was to be able to speak in another language. And I wasn't even thinking of English. I was thinking of just any language. I learned languages at school. So that was the start of it. I just loved it because it was like being able to speak in a code that not everybody could understand. And you could, I can speak this. And so it was that kind of passion initially. And then being able to give that skill to somebody else just really lit my passion for it. And it's very creative and it's communicative and you meet so many different people. And so I think over the years, there have been many people I've met, people like you, the most recent TESOL class, who just renew me because it's such a wonderful experience to be with people and literally upskill them and say, right now you can use that skill, whether it's teaching English or whether it's speaking English. Both of them are things that I love being able to empower people with that and say, wow, now, go on and do better than I do. So I think many, many different things, different people. One big thing that happened to me, though, it was before the pandemic, maybe 10 years ago, and I met a student in Manhattan. I was teaching her English, and she came in with her son. And he could speak fluent English. He was about 14 years old. She was from Mexico. And I said, oh my gosh, here's your mom. Isn't it great that she's learning English? And he just said, well, she's stupid. In this really brutal way. And I said, why? And he said, well, she can't speak English and she lives here and I don't want to speak Spanish to her. That has been something that I keep going back to, of like, I never want anybody to hear that they're stupid, especially not from their own children.
That's so heartbreaking.
Yeah. But then you realize how powerful English language learning really is and how it is transformative. Very much like, you learning to teach. Yeah. You're not the same person that you were at the beginning of the program. Exactly. And I get the privilege of going through that transformation every semester. And I see it and I know, and it's like an anticipatory, I can see what's going to happen and I can see, the changes. And then I can see the results of what you do. I mean, when you were teaching in extra English, you could see what you were doing with those students.
Yeah, I never thought that, teaching English is actually that powerful.
Yeah.
Just the thought that you are helping someone, you're, not giving it a lot. It's just a little bit of yourself to someone who thought that the only way for them to reach their goal is to learn English.
Yeah.
To step up, to have a better life. And that's so powerful.
Yeah. And I mean, English is a lingua franca. It's the majority language in a lot of different spaces, from computer, internet, medicine. And so you're really opening the doors or allowing everybody in rather than gatekeeping. We're saying, let's level the field. Let's all learn this basic ability to have what we call a lingua franca, a communal kind of language that we can all use, we can all access, and we can all progress.
I mean, I really never thought that, teaching English is more than just teaching English.
It's so much more.
Because, well, I did sort of back in the pandemic. There is an app called Palfish, so it's teaching Chinese students. I just did that because we had English in school. So, like, early years, you already have that. But when I came here, that's why I was supposed to study ESL.
Right.
Because even though you know the language, the pronunciation and the way it's used and how you talk and how people over here just have like one sentence, but when I try to talk, it's like I have 5 sentences. And like people are like scratching their heads. It's like, what are you saying? You can just say it in one sentence.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. But yeah, so I thought, there are, many ways just to be able to adapt and things like that. That's what I thought I would learn. So I get carried away talking. Yeah, I tell you, I talk a lot. So I just started learning English, teaching English just like that.
Yeah.
But really, no, it's more into it when I got in.
Yeah. And people really, really need it. So it's not kind of optional for most of the people we teach. This isn't an optional subject. This is required. And so there's a definite drive to make sure that we are good at teaching, we're efficient, that we can create community, that we, it's performative. So, but we don't want people to feel nervous, as you said. We don't want them to worry about their pronunciation. We just want them to try. And it's very, very, very hard, especially the older we get. And I can say this because I'm older than you, but pronunciation when you're older is much harder than when you're younger. So, there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you're teaching and learning English unless you really keep training and perfecting your craft, as you said earlier.
Yeah, because it's not just learning English per se.
Yeah.
But it's a whole lot of things because they get, when you're teaching, it's not just like, oh, this, and that, but it's a holistic how you taught us, understanding them.
Yeah.
What are the issues? They're nervous to speak.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of psychology kind of thing.
I think that, I think it's big. I think you've got to make people feel really comfortable, confident. I mean, you have to be a cheerleader. You have to really be like, we can do this. Learning English is very easy. Don't worry that your son called you stupid. We're going to make sure that changes. So I think, our job, it does grow in terms of what we do. And it is about relationships in the classroom. And that's why I feel that it's so important to be empathetic. Yes, you've got to know grammar. You've got to know sociolinguistics, all the things that you learn, second language acquisition, the theoretical side of it. But you've got to have the heart to do it too. And that's meeting people where they are, understanding their situation and being able to walk in their shoes.
Amazing. Okay. So I think by now they would know what TESOL means. Right. So in your experience, what makes an English teacher truly effective for diverse learners?
The diverse learners. Okay. Well, I think in terms of being an effective teacher, as I said, you've got to have that empathy. So you've got to be able to understand the challenges that the students face. So they could be many. It could be, as I said, nervousness and all sorts of different things, or just the difficulty of understanding grammar. I mean, it can be very, sort of practical, concrete issues, but you need to be empathetic. And with that, I think comes a love for people, that you want them to do well, that you are invested in them as a teacher. You don't just come and it's not just, oh, this is a job, I'm going to get, I'm going to make money or whatever. No, I think it's a vocation as much as it is anything else. So really wanting other people to succeed is fundamental. Then I feel that there's, the skill of teaching and the understanding of what does it mean to learn a language. And that, we talked about this in the program, but what does that look like? It's not knowing all the grammar rules under the sun. It's not knowing, all of these very theoretical things. It's literally about giving somebody a sentence, a chunk of language, and then practice, allowing them the space to try and practice. If people can understand that, rather than standing and talking too much, we will talk about that all the time. We talk about teacher talking time and student talking time and all the time. And your student should be talking 80% of the class. It's not about you. It's funny when you're in the classroom, you really are thinking, how can I bring out the best in that person so that they will talk about their life, their family, that they'll talk about what they did last night with as few inhibitions as possible. So that's the other thing. And then, yes, you've got to be a lifelong learner because teaching changes. Every classroom you have is changing. Different people, different needs. So I feel you can't be dogmatic, meaning you just can't go into the class and always do what you've always done. You have to go into the classroom and realize, read the room. What do people need? Do they want to do role plays about aliens, which we did? We did. Or do they want to, talk about the news? Do they want to talk about this? And work with the students. And very often I think it's useful for teachers to remember that even once you've been teaching for 35 years, I'm still going to carry on learning. I'm still going to go to the webinars about teaching. What's the latest thing? What's the new publication? Because that keeps you fresh, not burnt out. As you asked before, how do you stop that? I think those are qualities. It's a hard job.
It is.
I think
I've seen you. I've seen you.
Right. I think you're constantly working. Yeah.
And it's amazing how, I was just thinking when I was younger, I think that's the only way of teaching. But now it's so diverse, and there are many creative ways in how to teach.
Yes. Different things you can do, different things you can talk about. I mean, if you look at you in the summer, when you did the whole lesson about goal setting and, inspirational people, and the students were really into it. They really, because they could identify how that lesson would help them and how it would move their language forward. And so both teacher and student investment are important. You want students to be engaged. You want them to really realize what they will get out of being in that time with you.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Giving me flashback.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but that was not so long ago.
No, it was not. Wasn't.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's cool with teaching English too, because you can find topics that are, relatable to your student, and it's not just like one fixed subject that,
Yeah. Well, if you think about it, people need to use English in multiple different places. It could be at the doctor's office, it could be the boss, it could be a best friend. You're complaining, you're happy, you're just talking about what you saw happen in the street 2 minutes ago, you're trying to get advice. I mean, there's so many different things that you need to be able to do to communicate effectively. So you bring that into the classroom, and that's the creative side, and that's where it's fun, and it's because it's just really realizing, how do I make sure that I make this useful? And then you see it. And it's not just a book, and it's not just read about grammar and learn all the rules. Actually, that happens, but situated language is much more important.
It's like a simulation, more practical
That's a great
approach.
thing to say. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, next question. How do you balance teaching language with building students' confidence and voice?
So that's great. I think first thing is making sure everybody feels comfortable and that they can build trust in you. Because as I said before, it's a little bit like this. We're talking in front of a person, and people want to hear things. Yeah. So that's difficult. So you've got to make sure that students feel really comfortable, that they trust you, that they feel that you want them to do well. So a lot of community building to begin with, and maybe every lesson you have for students, and you'll remember things. You'll say, oh, remember what we did? You told me about your parents. How are your parents today? Or, what was your journey like into school? And, oh, how's your kid doing at school? So it's a lot of very personable kind of communications with students. once you've built that foundation, I think then you'll be able to do a lot with the students, and their confidence will automatically grow because they trust you. And if you can encourage them, and rather than sort of like, no, that's wrong, or let's try that again, lift them up. As I said before, be their cheerleader. So somebody says something, maybe a beginner student, and they manage to say, my name is, and you're like, wow, this is a huge success. Look, the rest is easy. So being on the sidelines, encouraging, making sure it's a safe space, being inclusive. I also think what's really important is making sure that even though the students are from diverse cultures and different places, that it's valued, that what you bring to the class is important to all of us and we can learn from one another. And that, you know, wherever you're from, whatever country and from whatever situation, because all of our students in the class, some have found it very easy to come to this country, others have found it very difficult to come. But we're all safe here, and that's an important piece for me.
Yeah, I like the
Cheerleader
part.
yeah.
Because really, you know, when they come in class, there are a lot of, you know, you come to any place and there are a lot of baggages from outside, and it will just, you know, be in any student. And if they feel like the class, you know, they're not lifted up at some point,
they won't come back. Attrition in adult English language classes is really, really high. And it's because, you know, the student doesn't feel comfortable, or somebody made fun of their accent, or they just couldn't do it. It was just too difficult. And so you've got to keep encouraging them and making sure that they know they are successful, because I do believe, and I've said this many times to you, success is the best motivator, without a doubt. If you feel successful, you'll continue. If somebody doesn't make you feel as though you're being successul, you'll leave. And they are adults. They're not K through 12. They're not a captive audience. They can leave.
So it's not like you're in class in high school that you know you have to keep
coming to. Yeah. Very different.
Okay. You've spoken about teachers as allies, advocates, and activists.
Yeah.
How do you think can new teachers step into that role?
Right. The three things. Allies, as I said, because we know, and I don't want to get too political, but right now we know that the current climate, globally, it feels like, is very much kind of anti-immigrant, if I don't know if we want to say this, but so the students don't feel comfortable sometimes. They do feel unsafe. They do feel that maybe they shouldn't be here, or that, you know, they've got no other kind of motivation to learn. So what we can do is quieten that noise that's maybe outside the classroom. And as soon as the door's closed, it's us. And that's where I think an ally, you become a friend. Advocate, you know, do what you can. If it's trying to just protect these students, helping them get access to the library, for example, making sure that they've got resources outside of the school that they might need. And that might be many different things. I think we do need to sort of understand that. And as I said, it's that empathy, that you understand not just the challenges of literally learning another language, but the challenge of being in a different country that maybe isn't as hospitable sometimes to them as it should be. So it's difficult. We have to learn a lot and work with the students the best we can.
All right, that's so wonderful, Leslie. As I mentioned in the beginning, you've created an impact on me. That's how also the class I had is so close to my heart, because it's just added to something that I wanted to do. And this podcast is like mostly in the past spoke about women struggling in life in general. And since you've given impact and you have a big heart and very empathetic, my question is, what quotes or quote would you want to share with our audience, women or men? in general about life.
Right. Okay.
Through your teaching and just maybe in anything that you've come across with.
Okay. I think, well, the quote that I shared with you in the program and that is always in my heart is by Maya Angelou, when she said, people will forget what you did, they'll forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you make them feel. And that to me is crucial, that, you've got to realize, don't hurt people's feelings, realize them, give people space, respect people. It's kind of everything that I feel. So that's very, very dear to my heart, and that goes with me throughout life. I'm very, or at least I try. I'm sure I fail many times, but I really try to be aware of not saying something that might hurt, or not pushing somebody too hard, or not making people feel uncomfortable when they, why, and not having my own agenda maybe. And then the second one is something that I've written in my book, and it was in a book by Forster Howard's End, and the start of it says only connect. And I've used that so many times in my life, in that what we need to do is make connections with people, not realize differences. And so that is something that I try a lot. We meet many different people in our lives. Some we relate to, some we don't. Doesn't matter. We just need to try and connect. And there will always be a point when we can. And I think when we try and disconnect, this is when we end up miserable ourselves, but, creating a space that nobody really wants to be in. So those two are important to me.
Yeah, I mean, I know your first quote, that means a lot.
Definitely.
And I'm trying to live by that too. I tried. Still trying.
That's all we can do.
Yes. So it's been a wonderful time with you as always. Thank you so much for sharing your heart, for sharing your thoughts, and being an inspiration not only to me, not only to my classmates, but probably to our viewers who right over there watching. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's a privilege. Enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So everyone, thank you so much. That was a wonderful time with my lovely mentor, Leslie. And I don't know when's the next one, but thank you so much for watching.